Market to Market is everywhere you are. Subscribe to Market on YouTube, find us on the PBS video app to stream on demand, and add our 3 podcasts on your favorite podcasting app.
Hello, welcome. This is the Friday, July 2, 2021 version of the Market Plus segment. Joining us now, Shawn Hackett. Shawn and I are talking weather. Forgive me, the Florida guy. When I always say when you come in the winter, we bring the coldest temperatures. We brought something that you like more now.
Yes.
I got several questions about the weather. I'll get to that in a moment. This first one, I want to finish up on the acreage discussion, you know, what's in our rear view. Let's start with Husker Fast in Lincoln, Nebraska. High grain prices and a good spring for planting. The expectation was farmers would plant all acres possible. The June 30 report surprised many analysts. Have we really lost millions of farmable acres?
I don't think we lost the farmable acres, Paul. I just think that for 3 or 4 years between weather and circumstances beyond the farmer's control, they got beat up so bad that they just, when they finally say, things are starting to go good, let's just put some money into the equity of our business and let's just leave those acres down and we'll come back to them another day if this is really for real. I think a lot of farmers still don't believe these prices are going to be around. They'll be back to 3 next year and we might as well just bank the money while we can. Why do we want to put any more money out there unless we have to? I think it's more about that than it is that we've lost the acres. Believe me, we have another year of these kind of high prices, those acres will come back.
Speaking of acres, I didn't get a chance to ask you about cotton. Did they benefit in this report?
They really didn't. Everyone was expecting those acres to come down, and they didn't. They kind of held their ground. Rice acres, as an example, also everyone thought they would come down. They held their ground. It just seemed like farmers said, I'm just going to keep doing what I know to do. The prices are good. I don't want to stay out of my comfort zone. And I think that was the message from this acreage report, that the farmer just did what he wanted to do, and it wasn't as much of a switcheroo this year. He was just happy to have a crop that he likes to plant, that he's used to planting, that he made money on.
But there's been rain in some of these cotton land areas. You talked about it during the main show about Kansas being too wet to harvest in some spots. Is that going to be the problem for some
It's
cotton?
really not so much a problem today. It could be a problem, you know, in August and September when the bowls are wide open and you have those issues. The hurricane season gets more active. Right now, I mean, usually, Texas is dealing with more dry weather, so rain for the most part is a good thing for them than a bad thing. Right now, the crop's looking pretty good. The crop ratings are, in fact, pretty good right now. The crop's on a good track at the moment.
Well, Ben wants to talk about weather. I always want to talk about the weather. He asked us via Twitter, with all the demons from earlier this spring, from too dry affecting populations to frost setting some corn greatly behind, does that give potential for a late summer/early fall rally, even if we get rain during pollination?
Last year, we had predicted a counter-seasonal rally in grains, and that turned out to be correct. We're not expecting that this year. We're expecting a traditional, make a top in July, and we head down into the harvest lows. We think we're going to be dealing with a more traditional seasonal pattern. And the reason we feel that way is because the drought cycle is going to break. And when you break that drought cycle and we have cooler, wetter weather in August, it's going to be very, very hard to get the animal spirits of the speculators going again like they have been. The other thing we're worried about is China's credit impulse. That is, their credit markets they've been withdrawing their credit now for 9 months. And there's a really strong correlation between their credit contraction and commodity markets starting to have trouble. And that cycle is coming into view in the fall. So it's a very good distinction. We could have some kind of a deflationary scare from the Chinese because of it, and we really worry about all that coming together to create some very bearish conditions in the fall.
When you say drought breaking, what are we talking here? Are we talking the areas of the Dakotas, Montana, Idaho? Are we going to get all the way to Nevada, California, Oregon?
We don't believe we're going to be talking about breaking all the way out west, but we think we're going to be talking about breaking, the South Dakota, the North Dakota, the Minnesota, some of the Iowa areas. We think that area is going to catch the break that the soybeans need to recover considerably.
Yeah, because Shawn, there's a look at the weekly drought monitor there, and you can see we're leaving out Minnesota, we're parts of Wisconsin. I posted something earlier this week on Facebook on our Market to Market page about a 72-hour estimate and said, what'd you get, what'd you need? The difference is not very wide of the haves and the have-nots. How does a market parse information like that?
You just have to look at the average over the whole area. You look at evaporation indexes, you look at these drought indexes, you look at moisture indexes, and you just say, on average, of course, they got 10 inches here and they got nothing here, but as an average, it's 5. And that's how you have to look at it. You have to just average it together, just like temperature. You just average it together and say, okay, it's been cool in the southeast, right? But it's been blisteringly hot in the northwest, but the average has still been 3.3 degrees higher than normal in the Corn Belt as an average, which means that the corn crop's going to have a really difficult time making trend if we have another hot July. It's the only way to really do it unless you happen to be right there looking at those kind of micro maps.
My lawn got it last week, but not everybody did. I know others could use it. All right, let's talk about soy oil. Scott in Bluegrass is wanting to know, where is soy oil headed? It had been kind of a driver for a while. Where's it going?
We had this classic parabolic pattern, literally straight up and then crash and burn. And usually when a market crashes after a parabolic run, the top is in. And what really drove it was this whole biofuel push, especially out in Indonesia, where they mandated that you use so much of this palm oil to make biodiesel. And of course, then throw in some weather issues and some lower production. So there's been a big backlash. Why are we using, vegetable oil that's for meat, for human food? Why are we doing this right now? Why don't we just kind of ease back this? And I really think that game is shifting away. And plus, don't forget, the palm oil is a tree crop. It's not like you plant every year. It's going to improve pretty quickly here, and we're going to have some better production out of them.
Throw you a curveball. We haven't talked biofuel policy, but the last 2 Fridays, there's been very negative news for the biofuel industry. What's that going to mean for A, the industry, B, corn and soybeans?
Like anything else, how long-term are those policies? Do we get somebody new in the White House that reverses everything again? Or
well, one's the Supreme Court and one was a district court.
Yeah. I say that, the long-term picture of moving away from fossil fuel, from crude oil, from, electric cars, less gasoline demand over the long term, let's say, the 10 to 20-year push says that ethanol demand and corn from ethanol is in trouble. But is that going to make much of a difference in the next couple of years despite these policies? I don't really think so. I think the key is gasoline demand good? We still have a lot of cars that need it. And is the price high enough? Like even at today's high price for corn, they're still making good margins. Whereas in 2012, they were upside down and they had to cut, cut the plants down. So I'm not really too concerned about the short-term impact.
And I said district court, I meant an appeals court. Sorry, on that other one. All right, let's get back to cheerleading a little bit for Shawn. Brian in Kansas remembers Shawn on 11 months ago. And he says, Shawn saw this rally happening 11 months ago. Way to go. So see, people are paying attention to you, Shawn. All right, let's move.
That really stems from our natural climate cycle algorithm that we utilize, that we project out 6-12 months weather forecast. We talked about the drought in Brazil impacting the second crop corn on January 1st. We talked about the drought cycle in the U.S. So I think what he's talking about is we made these long-term forecasts to try to position people for how these markets should operate within the weather scheme. And we pretty much, that forecast has worked out quite well for us thus far.
All right, put your forecast hands back together for this one. This is Craig in Wisconsin asking, what is the price target for corn if the weather drought is on par with his weather algorithm in July?
Well, if we're correct that we're going to have a final push of the drought cycle into mid-late July during pollination, we think that the corn crop yield is going to be in the low 170s. Pretty similar to last year, maybe a little less, but pretty similar. When you run the numbers, against demand, against the acres we just got, we're dealing with about 1 billion bushel carryout, give or take, which is kind of what we have today. Now, corn has been very comfortable being in the mid-6s, sometimes into the 7s, depending on the gyrations of the market. So we think that that is a price level that as we move into the spring of 22, and we get tighter, that's a price level that we think that the new crop corn can get, and it might even get at here before the end of the month. But because it's harvest time and because we're going to break the drought cycle, because all these speculators are going to start to sell, we don't think that we can sustain that, at least in the short run, until we get the harvest cycle out of the way.
All right, last question. It's going to be about China. Dan in Geneseo, Illinois wants to know via our Facebook page, How is the weather in the major growing areas of China looking, and how could that affect their buying needs?
Well, one of the theories was that the floods from last year was one of the impetuses for them to buy a lot of corn from us. And now that we lost 1 billion bushels out of Brazil, whether they're banking on, I think they came out and said, we're gonna have a record corn crop. Of course, they have no idea, right? So, but when you look at the northeast China plain, which is where that's the corn country for them, we watch these vegetative health maps. And the vegetative health map has been falling like this when it's supposed to be doing this normally. And so the drought cycle is starting to, now they had a really good subsoil moisture. So it's taken a month to get to where the stress is starting to build. But now in July, we think that vegetative health can continue to fall. And they may be looking at a late July issue where they go, you know what? That corn crop that we thought we were banking on maybe to give us a little breathing room is not going to happen. So we think it could be a market mover later in the month of July. Everything seems to be coming into late July is ahead with some of these weather issues.
You're on at the beginning of July. I don't think I can have you back at the end of July to see how well you were. We'll see you the next time and check on your progress.
I'd love to do it. Thank you so much, Paul.
All right, good to see you, Shawn. Thank you so much. That's Shawn Hackett for his insight. We appreciate that. And next week, we see what's bringing rural, urban, and downstream parties together on nutrient reduction. And Elaine Cobb will join us to break down the markets. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week.